On the evening of the 30th of October, 2025, Buckingham Palace released a statement that ran to fewer than 200 words. With it, the king began the formal process of stripping his brother of every style, title, and honor the man had carried for 65 years. The charities had already gone. 7 organizations had individually severed their associations with Andrew's former wife, Sarah Ferguson, over 8 days in late September, after a 2011 email surfaced showing she had called Jeffrey Epstein her steadfast, generous, and supreme friend. Julia's House, a children's hospice, announced first, saying it would be inappropriate for her to continue as patron. The Natasha Allergy Research Foundation, built in memory of Natasha Ednin Laperouse, a 15-year-old girl who died on the 17th of July, 2016, after eating a pret-a-manger baguette containing undeclared sesame seeds, confirmed on the 24th of September that the former Duchess of York was no longer their patron. She had held the role since the charity was founded in June 2019. Prevent Breast Cancer, which Ferguson had joined as patron in October 2024, following her own breast cancer diagnosis, severed ties. So did the Teenage Cancer Trust, where she had been patron since 1990, 35 years. So did the British Heart Foundation, the Children's Literacy Charity, the National Foundation for Retired Service Animals. 7 organizations, 8 days, 7 statements. Each thanked her for past support. None needed to explain further. The formal stripping came next. The October statement, then the legal instruments. A royal warrant dated the 30th of October, directing the Lord Chancellor to remove the Duke of York from the roll of the peerage with immediate effect. Letters patent under the Great Seal of the Realm, dated the 3rd of November, formally removing Andrew's style of Royal Highness and his titular dignity of Prince. The London Gazette, carrying both notices on the 6th of November. On the 1st of December, 2 further Gazette notices cancelled his appointments to the Order of the Garter and the Royal Victorian Order, both cancellations backdated to October 30th. The House came last. Andrew left Royal Lodge on the 2nd of February 2026, driven north to Wood Farm on the Sandringham estate, under cover of darkness. The October statement itself ran to 110 words. It said the king had initiated a formal process to remove the style, titles, and honors of Prince Andrew. It said Prince Andrew would now be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It said formal notice had been served to surrender the Royal Lodge lease. It noted the censures were necessary, notwithstanding his continued denial of the allegations. It expressed sympathy with victims and survivors of any and all forms of abuse. What the statement didn't contain, not a single syllable, was any reference to the 2 women who carried his name. Beatrice, Eugenie. 2 daughters who had held salaried jobs, married, become mothers, built independent work, and carried not a single scandal of their own making. Watching their parents' world dissolve in public, one institution at a time, without the document that ended it even acknowledging they existed. This isn't a story about Prince Andrew. That story has been told. This is the story that begins where his story ends. Andrew Albert Christian Edward, 3rd child and 2nd son of Queen Elizabeth II, was born at Buckingham Palace on the 19th of February, 1960. He was the first child born to a reigning British monarch since Princess Beatrice, Queen Victoria's youngest daughter, in 1857. His elder siblings, Charles and Anne, were 12 and 9 by the time he arrived. They had been formed in years before the reign had fully settled. Andrew was born directly into it. His mother was already the queen. His father was Prince Philip.
That fact
carried into every room he walked through for 65 years, is the foundational condition. Reuters described Andrew as once widely reputed to be Queen Elizabeth's favorite son. ABC Australia called him the Queen's rumored favorite. Multiple royal biographers have documented the same characterization consistently, though it was never formalized. What the public record confirms is behavior consistent with a particular kind of architecture. When the cabinet sought in 1982 to remove Andrew from active Falklands service, concerned about a royal family member dying in combat, the Queen overruled them and insisted her son remain with HMS Invincible. He flew Sea King helicopter missions throughout the campaign, anti-submarine operations, Exocet missile decoy runs, casualty evacuations. He witnessed the Argentine attack on the SS Atlantic conveyor. When Invincible returned to Portsmouth, the Queen stood on the dock with the other families. Commander Nigel Ward's memoir described the young Andrew as an excellent pilot and a very promising officer. He married Sarah Ferguson at Westminster Abbey on the 23rd of July, 1986. On the same day, Queen Elizabeth created him Duke of York, Earl of Inverness, and Baron Killyleagh, titles his grandfather George VI and great-grandfather George V had also held. The dukedom was the institution's language for who it believed him to be. Beatrice was born the 8th of August, 1988. Eugenie followed on the 23rd of March, 1990, both at the Portland Hospital in London. They arrived as the children of the man who was, at that moment, everything the institution expected him to be. The name they were given came with what appeared to be a permanent foundation. In 1988, nothing in the visible record suggested it wouldn't hold. Beatrice was 3 years old when her parents announced their separation. Eugenie was 2. The announcement came on the 19th of March, 1992. Andrew spoke warmly of Sarah Ferguson in later years, telling a reporter in 2008, "We have managed to work together to bring our children up in a way that few others have been able to, and I am extremely grateful to be able to do that." The amicability of the formal announcement didn't reflect what the palace's private calculations had already settled. In August 1992, the Daily Mirror published surreptitiously taken photographs of John Bryan, an American financial manager, kissing Ferguson's toes as she sunbathed topless in the south of France. The photographs were published on the 18th of August, while the royal family was at Balmoral. Princess Margaret reportedly wrote to Ferguson in 1995, after receiving flowers from her, "You have done more to bring shame on the family than could ever have been imagined." Sarah Margaret Ferguson was born the 15th of October 1959 at the London Welbeck Hospital, the second daughter of Major Ronald Ferguson and Susan Wright. The family home was Dummer Down Farm, a 480-acre property in Dummer, Hampshire. Her parents divorced in 1974 when she was 14. Her mother married Argentine polo player Hector Barrantes the following year and moved to the Argentine Pampas, to the province of Trenc-Lauquen. Ferguson remained in England with her father. In her 2011 memoir, Finding Sarah, she described the period with controlled understatement. Late in 1973, Mum returned from a stay in Argentina with Hector. She has said publicly that at 12, when the marriage began to break down, she developed an eating disorder and turned to food for comfort. She has said her mother made her feel worthless. She grew up to be someone the palace wasn't designed to accommodate. Warm, commercially minded, emotionally transparent in an institution that treats emotional opacity as a survival skill. By the time the March 1992 separation was announced, Buckingham Palace had already confirmed she would no longer undertake public engagements on behalf of the Queen. The formal divorce was finalized on the 30th of May, 1996. Under letters patent issued that August, she ceased to be a Royal Highness, but retained the style Duchess of York as a former Duchess. She kept the title. She kept the surname. Despite the divorce, she and Andrew continued to share the family home at Sunninghill Park in Berkshire until 2004, and then at Royal Lodge from 2008. The formal separation was complete. The domestic arrangement never entirely was. Two small girls watching this. What children absorb from family dysfunction isn't the headlines. It's the daily texture, the changed arrangements, the charity gala where their mother is present one year and conspicuously absent the next, the Christmas where the family is together at Sandringham, and the Christmas where it isn't. What Beatrice and Eugenie learned, in the way children learn things through accumulation rather than event, is that their family occupied an unusual position, one where the consequences of personal behavior were institutional, not just personal, and where institutions had very long memories. Here is the adult public record of Princess Beatrice Elizabeth Mary. Diagnosed with dyslexia at 7, went public about it at 17 in 2005, delaying her GCSE examinations by a year. Elected head girl in her final year at St. George's School in Ascot. A-levels in drama, history, and film studies. Enrolled at Goldsmiths, University of London in September 2008 to read history and history of ideas. Graduated in 2011 with a 2:1 Bachelor of Arts with honors. Worked in the Foreign Office's press office without pay. Was a paid intern at Sony Pictures, resigning in late 2014 following the company's hacking incident. Joined the AI software company Affinity in 2015. By November 2016, held the title of Vice President Partnerships and Strategy, a full-time salaried role at a private technology firm she held for approximately 8.5 years, until June 2025. Her LinkedIn listed her professionally as Beatrice York. While at Affinity, she also led a program supporting women in global business leadership. On the 17th of July 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, she married Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi, founder and chief executive of Banda Property, a London-based high-end residential development and design company, in a private ceremony at the Royal Chapel of All Saints at Royal Lodge, Windsor. The chapel on the grounds of the same Royal Lodge that, 5 years later, would be the subject of a formal eviction notice in a palace statement. Her father walked her down the aisle. He didn't appear in the official wedding portraits released by Buckingham Palace. Beatrice wore a remodeled Sir Norman Hartnell gown lent by the Queen, and Queen Mary's fringe tiara, which the Queen herself had worn at her 1947 wedding. Their daughter, Sienna Elizabeth Mapelli Mozzi, was born on the 18th of September 2021. The middle name, Elizabeth, a tribute to Queen Elizabeth II. No criminal charges, no personal scandal of her own making in any publicly available record. Here is the public record of Princess Eugenie Victoria Helena. Attended Marlborough College, A-levels in art, English literature, and history of art. Gap year in Thailand, South Africa, and the Far East. Enrolled at Newcastle University in September 2009, reading English literature and history of art with an incorporated politics component. Graduated in July 2012 with a 2:1. Her parents said at the time, "Eugenie has worked incredibly hard to achieve this excellent result, and we are immensely proud." The university separately confirmed she had earned a first-class mark for her final year history of art dissertation. In October 2013, she moved to New York City to work at Paddle 8, an online auction house, as benefit auctions manager. In July 2015, she joined Hauser & Wirth in London as associate director, one of the major international contemporary art galleries with spaces across London, New York, Los Angeles, Zurich, and Hong Kong. By 2017, she had been promoted to director. The gallery's official website states, Princess Eugenie of York has been working at Hauser & Wirth since 2015. She is a director based in London. In 2017, she co-founded the Anti-Slavery Collective with her friend Julia de Boinville, focused on ending modern slavery and human trafficking. She has spoken at the United Nations on the subject. She hosts a podcast, Floodlight, dedicated to the issue. She co-founded Key to Freedom, an initiative supporting products made by survivors of human trafficking. The Anti-Slavery Collective raised £1.5 million in donations in 2024. She is patron of the Royal National Orthopaedic Hospital, where she had spinal fusion surgery for scoliosis at the age of 12, metal rods in her back, which she still carries. At her wedding to Jack Brooksbank on the 12th of October 2018 at St. George's Chapel, Windsor Castle, she wore a dress designed specifically to expose the scar from that surgery. Their son, August Philip Hawke Brooksbank, was born at the Portland Hospital on the 9th of February 2021. Their son, Ernest George Ronnie Brooksbank, was born on the 30th of May 2023. No criminal charges, no personal scandal of her own making in any publicly available record. In the autumn of 2025, a comment appeared on a video examining Sarah Ferguson's file. It received 6 likes. It read, "Fergie is homeless. This is pathetic. Not for Fergie, but for her 2 daughters. Why are her daughters helping their mother? It's not like they don't have money. Their husbands are successful businessmen." The comment assumes financial facts, not in evidence. No publicly available record confirms that either princess is subsidizing her mother financially. What the record does show is that Sarah Ferguson's whereabouts in early 2026 were unknown to reporters. She was believed to be spending time at wellness centers in Switzerland and Ireland, her movements described as a mystery. Beatrice retained an apartment at St. James's Palace. Eugenie retained Ivy Cottage at Kensington Palace. Both kept those residences through private rental arrangements with King Charles. The Times reported that Andrew had originally negotiated these arrangements, pushing for his daughters to maintain a foothold in the royal palaces, and that while he was initially responsible for covering his daughters' rent, it isn't clear if they are now responsible for covering their own costs. The honest answer to the question of why the daughters maintain contact with their mother, to whatever degree, isn't complicated. She is their mother. They were raised inside a machine that has always been specific about who carries the weight of family reputation. It isn't usually the person whose behavior generated the problem. The second collapse wasn't a single event, but a gradual accumulation, building in stages from 2009 to 2022, with a particular inflection point in November 2019. In May 2010, Sarah Ferguson was filmed at a hotel meeting by a News of the World reporter, stating that Andrew had agreed she could receive £500,000 in exchange for arranging an introduction to him as a useful business contact. She was filmed receiving $40,000 as a down payment. Ferguson apologized publicly, describing it as a gigantic error of judgment. The newspaper reported Andrew had no knowledge of the arrangement. His name was in the meeting anyway. His name was always in the meeting. Beatrice was 21 in 2010. Eugenie was 20. Neither made a public statement. The BBC Newsnight interview of the 16th of November 2019, watched more than 14 million times on YouTube, is the moment most analysts identify as irreversible. Andrew sat with Emily Maitlis, discussed his friendship with Epstein, denied Virginia Giuffre's allegations, and offered an account of his whereabouts involving Pizza Express in Woking. He withdrew from royal duties 5 days later. His daughters were 31 and 29. In February 2022, Queen Elizabeth stripped Andrew of his military affiliations and patronages. A court had rejected his motion to dismiss Giuffre's civil lawsuit. In February 2022, he settled out of court for an undisclosed sum without admission of liability, continuing to deny wrongdoing. Both daughters were mothers by then. Neither made a public statement. What the record documents from this period is instructive in its restraint. Beatrice said nothing. Eugenie said nothing. They continued working. And then, in the year ending April 2025, as the Epstein files' second wave was building toward the September email disclosure and the October Palace statement, the anti-slavery collective's donations dropped from £1.5 million to £48,000. The charity had spent £191,537 on staff salaries during that period. The Charity Commission opened a scrutiny case over spending. By March 2026, Eugenie had stepped down from her separate patronage of Anti-Slavery International, where she had served for 7 years. No allegations against her. her profile was removed from the website. This is what it means to have a surname that belongs to someone else's file. The organization you built yourself, co-founded with a personal friend, not through a royal appointment, not through a patronage network, through actual work and actual conviction, gets entered into the ledger anyway, because the ledger uses surnames, not character references. From £1.5 million to £48,000. The Accountancy of Inheritance. 22nd of September 2025. 8 days, 7 charities. In the same news cycle in which Ferguson's charitable associations ended, it was confirmed that Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie retained their patronages of the Teenage Cancer Trust, the same charity from which their mother had just been removed after 35 years. 17th of October 2025. Andrew's voluntary statement. The continued accusations about me distract from the work of His Majesty and the royal family. BBC royal correspondent Sean Coughlin observed that morning that he might be seen as having to jump before he was pushed. Royal biographer Robert Hardman told the BBC Andrew was trying to look as if he's proactive and try and regain some dignity out of this. 30th of October 2025. 110 words. His Majesty has today initiated a formal process to remove the style, titles, and honors of Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew will now be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. His lease on Royal Lodge has, to date, provided him with legal protection to continue in residence. Formal notice has now been served to surrender the lease, and he will move to alternative private accommodation. These censures are deemed necessary, notwithstanding the fact that he continues to deny the allegations against him. Their Majesties wish to make clear that their thoughts and utmost sympathies have been, and will remain with, the victims and survivors of any and all forms of abuse. Ends. That is the full text. 110 words encompassing the end of 65 years of institutional identity. The phrase, style, titles, and honors, standing in for the Duke of York, Earl of Inverness, Baron Killy-Lee, Knight of the Garter, Knight Grand Cross of the Royal Victorian Order, and the dignity of Prince itself. No enumeration, no names, not of the titles, not of his daughters, not of his former wife. Number 10 Downing Street confirmed on the 31st of October. We fully support the decision taken yesterday by the Palace. Lord Chancellor David Lammy was instructed via royal warrant to prepare the necessary letters patent. The Guardian described the mechanism as executed through letters patent issued under the Great Seal of the Realm. The BBC's analysis noted, the record shows that the dukedom was removed by a royal warrant and the status of prince by a legal instrument called letters patent. No act of parliament required. The mechanism was royal prerogative. Royal historian Anthony Selden told the BBC that the last time a dukedom had been taken from a senior royal was more than 100 years earlier, 1919, when Prince Charles Edward lost the title of Duke of Albany for fighting on the German side during the First World War. The precedent was wartime treason. Multiple parliamentary and media analyses describe the 2025 action as the first of its kind in over a century. The scale of what the House of Commons Library, in its March 2026 briefing, called the removal of the style, title, or attribute of Royal Highness and the titular dignity of Prince by letters patent, was characterized across media as unprecedented in peacetime history. On the 6th of November 2025, the same day the London Gazette's notices formally completed Andrew's removal from the official record, Buckingham Palace announced that Princess Beatrice had been appointed Deputy Patron of the Outward Bound Trust, alongside her uncle, Prince Edward, as Royal Patron. She had served as a trustee of the charity for 6 years. The Outward Bound Trust's press release noted she was demonstrating her personal commitment to the charity's work. 2 announcements published the same day. His name formally erased, her role formalized. On the 1st of December, the London Gazette carried 2 further notices. The King had cancelled Andrew's appointment as a Knight Companion of the Most Noble Order of the Garter, held since 2006, and his appointment as Knight Grand Cross of the Royal Victorian Order, held since 2011, both backdated to October 30th. The exact Gazette wording: his name shall be erased from the register of the said order. By late January 2026, Andrew's move-out date from Royal Lodge was confirmed. Crown Estate officials had told the House of Commons Public Accounts Committee in December that he would receive no compensation for the early lease surrender, that after dilapidations it was highly probable nothing would be owed. Andrew had originally negotiated a 75-year lease, paying £1 million up front and committing to £7.5 million in refurbishments. The Crown Estate owed him nothing for leaving. On the 2nd of February, he left Royal Lodge under cover of darkness, driven to Wood Farm on the Sandringham estate. The same month, Sarah's Trust, the charity Ferguson herself had founded in 2020, announced it was closing for the foreseeable future. Trustees described the decision as having been under discussion for some months. On the 19th of February 2026, his 66th birthday, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was arrested at Wood Farm on suspicion of misconduct in public office, on allegations that he had shared confidential trade information with Jeffrey Epstein during his decade as UK Special Trade Representative. He was detained approximately 11 hours, fingerprinted, photographed, and released under investigation. No charges filed as of the time this script was locked. He continues to deny wrongdoing. Police searched Royal Lodge for a second day after the arrest. Not one of the formal legal instruments from October 2025 through February 2026 named his daughters. Walk through what that means when it's your surname on the letterhead. The charity your mother founded announced closed for the foreseeable future in the same month your father's eviction from Royal Lodge was completed. The charity your mother patronized for 35 years ended. The independent charity you co-founded yourself, raised from nothing, built to £1.5 million in annual donations, reduced to £48,000 in its most recent year, under Charity Commission scrutiny, because the scandal your parents accumulated didn't stop at the edge of what you personally did. The house where your wedding took place, the chapel at Royal Lodge, where you married on the 17th of July 2020, where your father walked you down the aisle and didn't appear in the official photographs, where the gardens hosted the reception, subject to a formal eviction notice in the same statement that removed your father's existence as a prince. The title in the London Gazette, Andrew Albert Christian Edward Mountbatten Windsor, shall no longer be entitled to hold and enjoy the style, title, or attribute of Royal Highness and the titular dignity of Prince, describing the erasure of the name you were born under. In the autumn of 2025, another comment appeared on the same video. This one received 67 likes. It praised humble people who work incredibly hard and who are content with the small life they have. By royal standards, Beatrice and Eugenie have spent the past 15 years attempting exactly that. Non-working royals, both of them. No allowances from the privy purse. Jobs with offices and salaries. Children raised without their names leading every article about their parents. A conscious attempt to occupy the institutional perimeter rather than its center. To be credible and quiet in a machine that generates noise at its core. Their titles are the one thing the October 2025 statement didn't touch. Under King George V's 1917 letters patent, the style of Royal Highness and the titular dignity of Prince or Princess were extended to the children of the sons of any sovereign. Because Andrew is a son of Queen Elizabeth II, a sovereign, Beatrice and Eugenie hold those titles by birth, independent of Andrew's voided dukedom, independent of Sarah Ferguson's lost Duchess of York style. People magazine confirmed it on the 31st of October. Princess Beatrice, 37, and Princess Eugenie, 35, will retain their royal titles in accordance with King George V's letters patent of 1917. The BBC confirmed it. Multiple outlets confirmed it. The October statement didn't legally affect their status. What is genuinely uncertain, and the record must be honest about this, is the longer arc. Royal biographer Andrew Lowney told 9.com.au in March 2026 that the sisters would most likely lose their royal titles in the future, as a future King William's streamlined monarchy took shape. Their economic prospects depended on remaining within the royal family, Lowney said. Their jobs in client relations are based on being princesses. A family friend told people at the same time, they want to hold on to their royal status. It's their identity. The October 2025 statement didn't alter their legal title status. It altered the world in which those titles exist. The most striking thing about the public record both women compiled is what they chose to make independently. Beatrice disclosed her dyslexia publicly at 17 and spent 2 decades in formal charity work for education and learning difficulties. She ran the London Marathon in 2010 to raise money for children in crisis. She climbed Mont Blanc. She served as Outward Bound trustee for 6 years before receiving the official patron role. Eugenie disclosed her surgical scar at her wedding, in a dress designed specifically to show it. She built an anti-trafficking organization from scratch, raised £1.5 million in its most successful year, and spoke at the United Nations. Neither of those women was doing the minimum. Neither was coasting on what the name provided. Royal commentator Victoria Murphy told the BBC in October 2025, "There is an appreciation of the fact that this scandal doesn't involve them, and it's not fair for it to impact them directly in the independent lives they are carving out for themselves." Royal author Katie Nicholl described them as largely untarnished. The phrase is worth sitting with. Largely untarnished means the standard of measurement is the level of their parents' contamination, and they haven't yet reached it. Their anti-slavery collective, which dropped from £1.5 million to £48,000 in donations, was largely untarnished. The patronage Eugenie stepped down from, without a single allegation against her, was largely untarnished. These things didn't happen because either woman did anything. They happened because the ledger uses the name. On the 30th of October 2025, a palace statement of fewer than 200 words ended the public life of a prince. It said nothing about his daughters. It didn't have to. The name being dismantled was theirs too. The one on their birth certificates, their wedding announcements, their children's futures. Beatrice and Eugenie did everything the institution asks of the born royal. They stayed quiet, they worked, they married, they made no trouble. The bill arrived anyway, itemized, the charities first, then the titles, then the house. That is the final lesson of their parents' file, and it's the one this family has been teaching its daughters for a century. In the House of Windsor, innocence isn't a defense. It's just the next generation's inheritance. If you want more stories like this one, subscribe.